The Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator search is heating up and getting interesting. Welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Sports Show where we love Seattle Pro Sports. I'm your host, Mikey, and today we are here to talk about the Seattle Seahawks search for their next offensive coordinator. All right, and we're not going to go over all the names that have been thrown out there, rumors or otherwise. We are just going to get straight into the names that are the hot names right now in the organization themselves, because there have been some interviews for the Seahawks open offensive coordinator position already, and already some of these candidates have been back for a second interview. First up, we're going to get to one of my favorites. In the last episode where I talked about Ryan Grubb getting fired, I threw out, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 names, somewhere in that range of names that I thought were out there and names that I liked. One of those, and one of the ones you may remember, was one of my favorites at the time. Clint Kubiak did get an interview and has gotten a second interview as well. So things are going quite well for Clint Kubiak in the process so far. And yeah, this is one I am really excited about. I know you may have heard, sports radio talk on 710 ESPN. You know, they have access to a lot of people. That's really cool, right? Brock and Sock, they can call up members of the media from all these places and have a little talk with them and try to get some information on these coaches, right? It's a fun little radio segment. But we can be thankful that the Seahawks are doing way more than that when it comes to actually figuring out who it is they are going to hire for the position. Because if you listen to Mike Sock on the Brock and Sock show, he was talking like he didn't like Clint Kubiak based on the little segment that they came up with. And I don't know if you heard this or know about it, but it was like hey, there's like, again, it was like 3 or 4 or 5 names that were thrown out there, that it was known that the Seahawks are interested in these people, or they were just people that they came up with that they thought the Seahawks would be interested in. Either way, the segment was they would call up a member of the media from each of those teams and talk to them for about 3 to 5 minutes and just kind of ask them, and this was in rapid succession. They would talk to one media member, it was like one from the Bears, obviously one from the Saints for Clint Kubiak, and then I don't even remember who else now, but it was, short little conversations, and based on these short little conversations, Sock was saying that he was not excited about Clint Kubiak, which, again, before that segment came out, I already said Clint Kubiak is one of the guys I'm most excited about out there on the market, right? So, I heard that, and I'm just, and then now we're hearing that Clint Kubiak is getting a second interview, and then I think I've heard some people and seen people's response, on social media, acting like, "Oh well, you know, is this really going to be a good hire?" And I feel like people weren't feeling like that until, you know, the Brock and Sock show kind of had their little talks with the media members, and then kind of felt like, we're not that excited about Kubiak. Again, the Seahawks are doing way more research than talking to a beat writer for 3 minutes on the radio, right? So, uh, I, you know, I would suspect that they gave him a second interview because he's actually really good and knows his stuff. And I don't think it would just be like, oh, this is, a boring hire that they go after because they feel like this would be the safe guy. No, I think he's actually very talented. You know, again, he is the same age as Mike McDonald, and in my opinion, from what I've seen of him, he's on his way to becoming a head coach himself one day. And what did we talk about? Again, I believe it was Corbin Smith that I believe it was him that I heard talk about it on the Locked On Seahawks podcast, where they were saying that it's been like 9 out of the last 10 Super Bowl winners have had at least two former head coaches on the staff. Your head coach, and then one of the coordinators had also been a head coach previous to being a coordinator for that team. So if you can get more, minds that are on that level in your coaching staff, the better. And I think Kubiak is on that level, and he could be, one of the next head coaches in the next few years. I would not be surprised. Again, you go back and look at his work. Again, his dad, Gary Kubiak. He's been around coaching his whole life, so he's got the pedigree there. But then, just throughout his NFL career as a coach, starting out with the Minnesota Vikings actually as a quality control coach, then goes to Kansas City as a wide receivers coach, ends up in Denver as an offensive assistant, then gets back to the Minnesota Vikings, becomes a quarterback coach for a couple of years, then becomes an offensive coordinator, goes over to Denver Broncos to be their passing game coordinator and quarterback coach during the Russell Wilson year. So that didn't turn out so good, right? And then ended up getting play calling duties there because of how bad it was going with Nathaniel Hackett there. And again, if you look at the time period when he had more responsibility, I think that's when we actually saw better performance from Russell during that year. And then where does he end up? San Francisco 49ers as a passing game coordinator. Again, getting a lot of influence with Brock Purdy, and we've seen how much Brock Purdy has overperformed, to that point in his career. And then, this year with the New Orleans Saints as offensive coordinator, again, just go look at that team and all the injuries they had. The fact they had Derek Carr, which he's not even as good as Geno Smith, right? And just look at how well he was able to get that offense playing, even with all the circumstances there. Okay, so uh, with you know with Clint Kubiak, things that make me really excited is he does come out of that West Coast um, Kyle Shanahan tree, right? So I really love that style of offense. I think I would really love that style of offense for the players that we have on our team now. Can you imagine? Um, can you imagine uh, DK Metcalf, uh, JSN? A combination of Canine and Charbonnet. You know, running these type of plays where you're getting to gaps in other teams' defenses, getting open in space and having room to run. Can you imagine um you know a lot of play action, which again just a couple of years ago, um Geno Smith was one of the most efficient quarterbacks when running plays out of play action, something we didn't do very much this year. Imagine we start getting back to that. How much more efficient does Geno Smith become and get back to? If we are just, have a more aggressive run mentality, how much does that improve? Uh, you know, K9 and Charbonnet, and I think K9 could really improve a lot in this type of running scheme because it's really spreading the defense horizontally, right? And well, K9, he likes to run horizontally, right? But if you're really spreading the defense out horizontally, maybe you get him in some more one-on-one situations where he can, you know, take advantage of all that, um, all the abilities that he has to use his elusiveness to, um, you know, juke players, break their ankles, get around him, and take off running. And same thing with Charbonnet. You get him in these type of situations. You're running. He's running people over the middle. He can also go outside. Use his style of getting by players. Again, that's a good 1-2 combination. Again, I'm already imagining in my mind. Okay, we have something like this. I'm looking at the type of running game that you see in a combination with the Lions or with the Dolphins. Pretty exciting, right? um, another thing that we would see that I'm glad wouldn't be going away is normally you get a lot of motion in here, right? That was one of the things that we were excited about with Ryan Grubb because Shane Waldron, he didn't really involve that in his offense. He just had people standing there, didn't cause a lot of motion, didn't make the defense react to too much, and then it was always the same routes being run. So it was very predictable, right? Well, again, you're getting somebody like a Clint Kubiak who uses a lot of play action, who uses a lot of pre-snap motion, who is spreading the receivers out. That is going to create a lot of confusion for the defense and just help out your offensive players even more. Now, what will he do for the offensive line, which needs a lot of help? I can't say for certain, how much he's going to be able to help out the offensive line and their ability. But I would think his style of offense would be beneficial to our offensive line in the way where when we are running run plays, they get to be more aggressive. When we are running pass plays, it's kind of, uh, it gets the ball out of the quarterback's hand faster, so that they don't need to be blocking as long, right? Uh, the timing of these things will be at a much faster pace. And what did Mike McDonald say in his press conference? What they were looking for? He was looking for an offensive coordinator that could get Geno Smith playing fast, because uh, that's what he feels like he could do best. Well, you're looking at a coordinator in Clint Kubiak that could make that happen. So that's why I'm really excited about Clint Kubiak. And again, I'm sure the Seahawks are doing their due diligence. They didn't just have um, you know, a couple minute interview with a beat writer to decide if this guy is going to be their next guy. They've done, an interview and a second in-person interview so far. So, again, that just tells me that, to bring him in for a second interview in person, that tells me the first interview they got along with him, they liked what he has to say, and that they think he could be the guy. They got to get him in the room and find out, is he a needle mover? Does he tilt the room? We'll find out what they think in the near future. But we're also going to find out what they think about Grant Udinsky. This was a name you did not hear me mention, because this one was totally off the radar. I didn't even know who Grant Udinsky was before they, put in the request to interview him, and now they've interviewed him and have, done a second interview with him as well, which is just totally mind blowing. Grant Udinsky, right now, 28 years old. Wow. 28 years old, and getting a interview and a second interview to become offensive coordinator for a team already. What they say about this guy is that he is, he's one of these geniuses, right? Again, now going back to the Brock and Sock show, and what they said was that they when they asked the coach about it, they compared it to him being like a guy that you go to a car wash, or Grant Udinsky interviews for a car wash, but it turns out he's the kind of guy that can actually like take your whole car apart and put it back together. Like that's the level of that's the level of IQ he has for football. So you gotta pick a brain like that. And for him to get a second interview tells me it's more than just smarts. Maybe he does also have what it takes to lead, to lead an offense, to lead men and be a leader. If he wouldn't have shown that in the first interview, I don't think they would have brought him in for a second interview. But he must have that. We are hearing that he's very player focused, that he is very good at building relationships with players, so that he would be able to come in and fit in the culture that they're still building off of what they've had from Pete Carroll, that Mike McDonald says they're keeping around. So he'd be able to just help continue that. Again, they compare Mike McDonald to Sean McVay, like he's the Sean McVay of defense, right? He's very detail oriented, and very, um, he's a good communicator. He's a good teacher, is what they say. He's very good at teaching these details, and that's what we're hearing about Graham Udinsky. Only, he is on the offensive side, so maybe Graham Udinsky, though he's never been an offensive coordinator before, he's never been the play caller. Maybe he is the next type of Sean McVay guy on offense. People have been looking for the next Sean McVay. This guy could be the next Sean McVay, where if we hire him as offensive coordinator, now we could be losing him in 3 years because he's going to be a head coach at the age of 31. That's the type of level that we're talking about that this guy has the potential for. So again, you would want to get that guy in your room if you think if he really does have that potential. And this one would be a little more risky because you don't know. I mean, at this point, you look at his resume. He's been coaching assistant. He's been assistant to head coach of special projects. He's been the assistant quarterback coach, and then this year he was the assistant offensive coordinator and assistant quarterback coach. So never really like the main leader of the room. From what I understand, they've let him lead some things sometimes, but never like the guy that is the end all be all of the deal. So this would be the first time that he takes that sort of position with something. But if he can do it and can do it at the level that he has the potential for, then yeah, we're talking about the next offensive, the next great offensive coordinator and potentially head coach. That again, you want to get that guy as your offensive coordinator before he becomes the next head coach of something, right? So it would be, this is another one that I'm actually very excited about because, again, even though it's not a name we all knew, it's definitely a name I didn't know. It excites me that they are really going that deep into their research to find, to find the best of the best. They're not just, I think Clint Kubiak again would be very exciting, but they're not just looking at the Clint Kubiaks, the guys that are clearly, that clearly should be looked at. They're really going through, doing the research and looking far and wide to really make sure that next guy they hire is the best guy. So I'm pretty confident in this whole thing in general. So those are the two leading guys right now. We haven't heard of anybody else getting a second interview at this point. We know that they've interviewed, a handful of other people, but none that have gotten a second interview. So these are leaders, and these are two that I would actually be very excited about. Now, some wild things happened in the playoffs already, right? The Lions, #1 seed, they lose their first game in the playoffs, and that frees up Hank Fraley because, well, Ben Johnson sounds like he is getting hired to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. Now, Hank Fraley, offensive line coach for the Lions, he's gonna be free to interview now. But now you got more competition because people were already interested in Hank Fraley outside of Detroit. But now that it is for certain Ben Johnson is leaving, it's probably going to be for certain that Detroit is also going to look at Hank Fraley to stay there and try to continue what they have there and be their next offensive coordinator. Now, with the Seahawks having interest in them, in him, I would be excited about that again, just because of all the work that he's done. As he was an offensive lineman in his career, and of course, as an offensive line coach throughout his career, he's done a pretty great job of, building some good offensive lines and developing some good offensive linemen as players. So, the guy knows offensive line. You know that he would probably be able to come here and help the players that we do have, help players develop that that we might draft or might bring in free agency. He would really help that out. And just based on his experience with the Detroit Lions for the last what 4 or 5 years, whatever it's been, he would, we could say he's been learning a lot from Ben Johnson. So again, I would expect if he was to become an offensive coordinator that he would also be running a similar style offense. And so, yeah, I think it's clear, with the two leading candidates that we have so far, and this third one in Hank Fraley that I'm sure the Seahawks are going to show interest in and try to interview themselves if Detroit doesn't just make them their next OC as well. I think, yeah, we are really starting to see what Mike McDonald would like the next offensive coordinator to be, and what he's hoping that he can get out of the system. And again, that is, just as he said, an aggressive running style, but also not just, hey, you have to be run heavy, we have to run all the time, but a style of offense that is going to be up tempo, that is going to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly and get the ball to those playmakers' hands in space so that they can make something happen after they catch the ball. And that is really exciting because, again, DK, JSN, K9, Charbonnet, and whatever else they decide to do, whatever else they bring in, whatever happens at the tight end position, whatever happens with that third wide receiver position, we're talking about getting a lot of really athletic players the ball in space to use their athleticism to make something happen. And that, to me, is really exciting. All right, but let me know what you are thinking about the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator search so far. Are you excited about Kubiak? Are you excited about Udinsky? Are you more excited about somebody else that is potentially out there, like a Hank Fraley, or somebody else that they haven't been able to interview yet? Let me know if one of these guys is the guys that you want to have right now, that you're hoping they hire, whether it's Kubiak or Udinsky, or have you been looking into them and you're still feeling like, no, you're out on them, you want somebody else, and let me know who it is. All right. But yeah, thank you so much for checking out the show. Please hit the like button, subscribe. Again, leave me all those comments and let me know what you think of what's going on with the Seahawks offensive coordinator search so far. And thanks for listening to the Seattle Sports Show, where we watch legends awaken. So take cover, because with a sea of sound, you will see us rise to reign supreme and win forever.